not from around here, meaning Earth.
Mm-hmm.
They show him what a crop circle pattern will look like, and then they direct him to where it's going to happen or has just happened. And he had an American out for a week photo documenting this process. This all seems to be very real. Could it all be hoaxed? I'm a skeptic. I write for the Daily Conspiracy as a skeptic, meaning, yes, I want to believe, but I don't believe everything I hear or see. Because I know that images can be faked and I know that people can lie. Even good-intentioned people, well-intentioned people, will say things for reasons sometimes we don't fully appreciate on the surface. You know what I'm saying?
True.
People have various motivations to do what they do. But all these people seem very sincere to me, and it is fascinating.
I find it so too. This actually is one of my pet topics. And I was glad when I saw that you were going to be doing presentations on the topic because I will watch your presentations. I will
Oh,
find them
yay!
well,
Well,
because I like your work. I know what you will put into that.
oh, that's sweet. That's
So
kind.
that's true.
Thank you very
You do a
much.
good job.
And
And
honest.
you
Sweet,
are
kind, and
honest.
honest.
I am that too.
A
Even
winning
sometimes
combo.
but I'm always kind. Even when I'm honest and it's
Saturday,
hard.
let me get the date right. Saturday next.
Hmm.
Pull up my calendar here. Saturday next, April 6th, I'll be presenting on crop circles for the Northern California MUFON group. This was rescheduled and pushed back a couple of months, and my
Right.
presentation is even better, even more powerful and compelling. It's going to be awesome. And that'll be recorded. And of course, I'll be distributing that. And one place I can be distributing that is from my website, which I invite everybody to visit before we go to break.
Yes.
Please email me, Jean, Jean, at lightwork111.com. Visit my website, www.lightwork111.com. I have articles linked there and my book linked to Amazon, Unknown Objects,
Nope.
the top 10 U.S.
Yes.
UFO cases, unknown
You
objects.
got it
That
wrong that
was,
time.
I did, I fumbled, and it's so important. Unknown objects starts with a U, in case you're
Yes.
that sort of person. My name, Jean Broida, the author, Jeanbroida, just say oi, Broida, and I welcome all readers and feedback. This book is supposed to entertain, inform, and uplift, and I hope it does.
It does. I love it. So,
And
of
Kat
course,
has
I'm a little
endorsed this
prejudiced.
project from the get-go. Kat warranted mention in the acknowledgments because she has been my supporter. You, Kat, have been my supporter since the get-go.
I am your supporter.
I know,
Always.
and vice versa,
I
of
know.
course.
And it's really great to me that you got this compilation done and done well. And I appreciate the acknowledgement because I was so flattered. I like you so much and I respect your work. And I'm glad that it's something that you're able to present because it's worthy of that. And you are too. I think it's a neat thing. It's a good way to get people who are not very familiar with ufology in the United States involved, to give them an idea that no, this isn't just one or two things, and these aren't crazy people. These are real people living day to day lives that are thrown off track a bit by random experiences. Nobody asks to be abducted. Nobody asks to have their life turned around by an experience like this, just a visual experience. And you made it real. You did a good job.
Certainly the cases that I covered, thank you very much again for those kind words, and certainly the cases that I covered in this top 10 primer, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, historical look back of unknown objects, that is certainly the case. But I've also heard many a case, and I'm sure you have too, of people inviting those intelligences and
I know
presences
people who
into
can
their
do that.
lives, for better or for worse.
We're going to
We
have
can
to
pick
talk
that
about
up after the break.
Yes. And we will be right back. And this just gets better, guys. She's amazing. We'll be right back.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Several U.S. presidents are on record talking about the UFO mystery.
Yeah, Presidents Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan both had UFO sightings of their own, but the current presidential campaign might be the first in which UFO disclosure has been championed by a major party candidate.
DIA, CIA, it moves around, is operating a program to train psychic spies to spy and use their powers against Russia. John Ronson writes about this in The Men Who Stare at Goats.
The first known sighting of a ghost took place right after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated in the late 1860s during the administration of Ulysses Grant.
Project Paperclip, Clinton releases it all in 1998.
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I say, do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial.
It's a place where UFO hunters and scientists gather to examine paranormal activity in the region.
Some of the documents, this is bringing Nazi scientists into the United States to work here. So we fought against the Nazis, and it's not, this again is not a revelation. As early as 1947, 1946, we knew some of this, right?
On the paranormal, will we see U.S. President Barack Obama's foreign policy go intergalactic in a quest for gold stolen by aliens? We'll tell you at least how the White House responded to claims the chief executive has been teleporting to Mars. But let's get to today's Capitol account.
UFOs, hauntings, psychic abilities, conspiracy, ESP, cryptozoology. There are many things that remain unexplained in the inexplicable world around us, and we're talking about them here, looking for answers on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama. The truth is out there.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. And we're back. I am so excited to bring Jean Broida back with me. I know if you heard that first segment that you are sitting on the edge of your seat. Jean, bring us back in.
Well, thank you so much, Kat. And hi, everybody. We were talking about what happens to people who actually invite extraterrestrial or other dimensional or otherworldly beings or intelligences into their lives consciously through intention, meditation, prayer, drugs, whatever. There seems to be a consciousness component with all kinds of, I guess that sounds a little silly to say there seems to be a consciousness component behind all kinds of paranormal phenomenon. It sounds trite. It sounds trite, but when we're talking about UFOs and if you're thinking about a craft in the sky, when humans talk about a craft in the sky, we talk about a human pilot of that craft, whether the pilot's on the plane or operating it remotely. It's still a human. Humans don't use consciousness to guide an aircraft, But apparently ETs do, or whatever these beings are that have built craft that the United States and other governments have recovered for decades and reverse engineered. These beings integrated consciousness with the operation of their craft, which made it very difficult for the pragmatic and empirical U.S. scientists to crack, because they hate to admit there's anything psychic, although they started studying psychic stuff in earnest after World War II. All of this stuff came down.
The Cold War was
quite
active with that.
Project.
Well, I believe that World War II saw a lot of interaction. We had Foo Fighters. The Germans had Foo Fighters. The British and U.S. Air Forces experienced them.
True that. Chapter 1 of my book, Unknown Objects, the top 10 U.S. UFO cases. But getting back into consciousness, too, we had, from my book, there's a chapter on Betty and Barney Hill. Now, here's a very interesting case, because there's the contrast between somebody who wanted a consciousness connection. That was Betty, the wife. She called the UFO over to their traveling car, and it began pacing the car following it, which unnerved her husband, Barney, who was driving. He didn't like the look of this thing. It didn't behave like a conventional aircraft, and he knew, because he was ex-military.
Right.
He knew. He was a trained observer, if you will. He wasn't Air Force. He was Army. But even so, these guys were trained in observation in case bombers came overhead dropping bombs and stuff. This was the real deal. He served during World War II. He saw active duty. So he knew his way around an airfield. He knew his way around aircraft, and he knew this was not an ordinary aircraft, and it mortified him. She was better disposed until they actually had a one-on-one encounter, at which point, under hypnosis, she sounded horribly, horribly frightened, and he was basically paralyzed with fear. Almost, he could barely talk under hypnosis.
Yes.
He kept repeating himself and assuring himself that he would be all right, basically, that his gun would protect him. He was saying outlandish things in view of what was allegedly transpiring. That's how our consciousness masks debilitating fear. He was so fearful. I'm sure he lost all his bodily fluids, although that's conjecture on my part. I wasn't there.
Well, I've seen people that were discussing something that had happened to them who still were at that point.
The point of fear?
The point of just astounding fear. They didn't even like having that discussion. And then I have good friends who can interact, who do call craft to them, and they allow other people to be with them when they do it.
Yes.
It's quite something.
It is. And how is it that those people were tapped? Apparently it has to do with consciousness and reaching out. So we have cases in history. I'm thinking Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein and possibly Thomas Edison, all having been influenced by angelic voices, their higher self, ETs, something along that line. Other people have, I met a woman in Colorado who was writing for paranormal shows, UFO shows, and I don't know any more than that, but she was having success writing based on a lifetime of experience with entities that literally saved her life as a child multiple times, saved her from falling out of a tree, pushed her back into the tree basically, and then communicated with her on an ongoing basis and fed her story ideas. I envy that sort of contact. She asked for it, and I don't think she asked for it, but it was a positive contact. She accepted it and rolled with it. So
Grant Cameron is convinced that the downloads happened for centuries because, Beethoven and Bach and all these people who would just sit down and boom, there's an opera written in 4 hours. All the way through. Still happens today with artists. And one of his books, expands on that. So it's not unrealistic to think that it would happen now. And that it does happen now. Even current artists say that happens.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
Yes.
yes. But then we have a case like Stan Romanek in Colorado. I spent 24 years in Colorado, so I met Colorado UFO people along the way. Stan Romanek and his family